Hello, everybody, and welcome to Monday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. I am John Schmeelk, joined by Paul Dottino. The phone number for you will take your calls at 201-939-4513. Hashtag Giants Chat on Twitter. If you want to get in touch with us that way, you certainly can. Apologies ahead of time. I picked up a bit of a head cold over the weekend somehow. Don't know how. Neither kid is sick. But I'm struggling a little bit. The voice sounds okay. I'm a little foggy, but we're out there, and we're fighting through it, so I apologize if I cough or have to do anything that during the course of the program.
It doesn't have to come from a child, you know. You can get sick from anybody.
Yeah, but usually that's where it comes from.
I understand.
At least when you're a parent, that's usually where
Well, you were in a
stuff
jam-packed arena a couple of times last week, too.
I was. That might have been where it came from. That is very
I'm
much
just saying.
possible. So, anyway, we're out. We're ready to go here. Giants' first OTA was today, Paul. And just for for fans that don't know, OTAs stand for Organized Team Activities.
Mm-hmm.
It is phase 3 of the offseason program. Phase 1 is just strength and conditioning and meetings. Phase 2 is offensive field work, defensive field work separately, along with team meetings and strength and conditioning. This is phase 3, which is the first competitive portion of the offseason program, Paul, but there are still a lot of rules that limit what you can do. There's no contact allowed. So the ability to evaluate is very much hindered. Still, I was excited to see these guys out there actually competing against each other on the field for the first time.
Helmets, shells, and shorts today. And that goes along with the fact that there is no contact. Okay, so there's no need to get into the full gear. So a lot of positional drills went on today, and then, as you said, John, there was some competitive stuff back on the third field. The one thing that I think is important right now, as you know, and I'm not giving any secrets away here, when the units are running their positional drills, the biggest key is that they want the guys to run through those mental plays and make sure that as they're running the positional drills, what you'll watch is the position coaches are setting guys up and they're saying, this is the situation, this is what we're looking at. And how are you going to run your stunt? How are you going to run your blitz? How are you going to, if this guy's going here and it's a zone, how are you covering up the zone? And that's what you see a lot in the positional drills.
Yeah, absolutely. And my notes will be going up on Giants.com. I just filed it before we started our show. And guys, look, I would love to just straight out tell you who's playing at what positions.
We can't. That
is rules not just for us, but for the regular media as well. Some of that stuff might leak out when the first OTAs open to the media on Thursday. But until then, we just can't say. Trust me, I wish I could, because it would actually give us a lot of stuff to talk about and it'd be a lot of fun. But I am not allowed to, and that's just something that for all OTAs around the league, that's something that
you mean Dexter Lawrence was not taking snaps at quarterback?
Yeah, but look, I know fans will want certain information, but unfortunately we are not allowed to give that to you.
We are not.
No. But we're happy to answer any of the questions you have. Again, the phone number is 201-939-4513. And Paul, you mentioned it. In my notes, I made a point to watch during the individual and installation portions of practice. Two of the new coaches that arrived here this offseason was Carmen Brasillo, the offensive line coach, and Shane Bowen, the defensive coordinator. The offensive line coach, you can argue, is other than the two offensive and defensive coordinators, the most important coach on any coaching staff. So I'll start there. Watching Brasillo, and I wasn't there the whole time, but the portion of the offensive line drills that I watch, and I wrote about this on the piece that's going up on Giants.com, it was a lot of mental work, right? So he split the lineup into left and right. So you had a center, the left guard, the left tackle on one side, working next to them, half a field over with his assistant offensive line coach, was the center, right guard, right tackle.
Yeah.
And he would line up, I believe it was three defenders maybe. So he would take the offensive lineman not involved in the drill, line them up as defenders, right?
Three. I thought it was three.
It might have been three. And then Carmen Brasillo would instruct those guys to line up in certain areas and then what they should do post-snap in terms of movement.
Right.
And it was on the center to correctly identify what protection call to make based on where they were aligned up pre-snap, and then it was everyone's job to pass off the twists and stunts they were running after the ball got snapped. So it was a lot of, all right, this is what the defense shows, what's your protection call, and then how do you execute that protection call based on whatever stunts and twist and movement those defenders would show you post-snap. So it was a lot of mental work, a lot of detail work to get those offensive linemen ready for something that we've talked about in the show, Paul, a million times over the past few years. The Giants have been, frankly, awful, and we've detailed the statistics on the program of picking up twists and stunts over the course of the year. So it's something that they're working on early on here to make sure the mental part of the offensive line position is set.
You see, I don't know enough about Carmen Brasilo's past and his coaching style or his coaching technique to know if that's his normal MO or if that's something that was going to be stressed out of the box because of the Giants' history. I can't answer that. I just don't know.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that either.
Okay.
But I know I can tell you coming from the Dante Scarnecchia school, he is not going to stand for mental errors. I'll tell you that.
Absolutely not.
Right.
Absolutely not. And I think it was apparent to me, too, there are some coaches who are more instructors and yellers, and then there are other coaches who are more teachers. I couldn't hear what he was saying.
There
wasn't
wasn't a lot of yelling and screaming.
But it didn't seem like there was. He looked like he was more of a teacher than a yeller and a barker and an instructor.
And again, we're early in the practice, and you're not being
one
physical,
OTA.
and we're not being physical yet.
Yes.
Usually
it's one OTA.
The enthusiasm, the screaming and yelling comes along with the physicality and stuff like that.
The only thing I will say is that being at some of these things over the years and years past, when you see a coach getting ticked off to the point where he does feel he has to bark,
right.
If that's happening now, that's not a good sign.
Correct. So I thought it was fun watching that. And then I watched, during one of the installation periods, I wanted to watch Shane Bowen do that with the defense, right? So I went over there, and it was similar to the type of stuff Carmen Brasilo was doing. So he had his first-team defense and second-team defense lined up kind of parallel to each other, so they wouldn't interfere with the work that they were doing. And he had, members of the equipment staff kind of pretend they were the offensive players, slot wide receiver, X wide receiver, Z wide receiver, tight end, halfback. And he would put them in certain pre-snap formational positions, and he would make sure the defense, based on the play was called, was able to make the call they would have to make.
Yep.
He would send somebody in motion, made sure that the defense knew what shift and adjustment to make based off that motion. They would have to call it out and make the play. Or make your proper pre-snap movements on defense to shift to based on what the offensive formation was. And then he would also often send somebody in motion at the snap, an elite shift. And
I saw that.
You would want to have the defense react correctly to that. So again, it was a lot of, all right, this is a play call. Based on that play call, where do you align based on offensive formation and personnel? And then how do you then adjust based on movement and shifts before and after the snap to make the right call to make sure your defense is sound? So that was a lot of the stuff they were working on during the installation portion of the defense.
My only thought there is, again, given the demeanor, from what I could tell, he did not seem very upset with anybody.
No.
Everything looked very calm,
Correct.
Very studious, very methodical, which leads me to believe that they were doing okay for what he was asking.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is like early installation stuff. They have not installed everything.
I understand that.
This is just trying to get everybody used to what you're trying to do. It's a brand new defense for everybody. And I think people kind of just getting ready to go there a little bit. So Daniel Jones, I can say, was out there. He was moving around pretty well.
He's been doing that, actually, ever since they were allowed to get on the field. He's moving around extremely well. The mobility is, to be frank, I don't know enough about medical to tell you if he's ahead of schedule or not, but he certainly seems to be doing well.
Certainly doesn't look like he's behind schedule. I'll say that.
I think that's a good guess.
He did complete passes to players over the course of practice, so he was involved, which is good to see. Drew Lock was out there as well. Tommy DeVito was out there, and then Rourke was out there as well, who was the third quarterback. You want three quarterbacks that can do everything in team situations. So you want to have that third quarterback out there. So again, it was good to see him out there. We're not doing attendance here, folks, so I can't answer those questions either.
Right.
But Evan Neal, who the Giants talked about having the offseason ankle surgery, right? That was reported. He was out there. He was moving around pretty well, too. He was working on a lot of his pass sets and stuff like that. I thought he was moving pretty well. So I think all in all, you have to be pretty happy with what you saw. During team action, I thought it was telling that the first pass was completed to Malik Neighbors.
Yes.
In the right flat. He probably, in terms of volume, had the most catches on offense. Jalen Hyatt had a couple catches over the middle. Devin Singletary had a little catch over the middle that could have went for a score on a run after the catch. And much like this is during training camp, they do the same thing, Paul. It was a lot of short field stuff today. And that's what they do. When they first start doing competitive stuff, whether it's in the OTAs or it's a training camp, they don't do full field stuff because you don't want guys opening up full speed and potentially pulling a hamstring, pulling a quad, pulling a calf. So it's a lot of short field stuff, so guys aren't really opening up and sprinting full speed over long distances. So everything was, I think, was inside the 40 or even maybe inside the 30 in terms of most of their drills today.
From my angle, from where I was in relation to the practice field, John, I don't recall hardly anything being thrown more than 15 yards downfield. Do you? At all? Maybe a couple?
Everything was
I
short.
Don't remember. I don't remember anything longer than 15.
Maybe 15, maybe one got to like 18 yards or something like
That's
that.
it.
But no, that's what I'm saying. Everything is short fields. They don't want guys opening up for long passes. So.
And that makes perfect sense. I mean, come on. This is their first kind of really starting to ramp up stuff. The last thing in the world you need is for someone to get a pulled muscle.
No, and it's counterproductive. So they'll work up to that. By the time you get to next week, you'll have 3 OTAs this week, by the way, today, Tuesday, and Thursday. And then, by the way, no show on Friday. There's a 4-day weekend for Memorial Day, so there's no show Friday, no show next Monday either. So just keep that in mind in terms of Big Blue Kickoff Live. But then we have 3 OTAs this week, 3 OTAs next week. I believe it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, if I recall properly.
I don't have it with me.
And then we have 4 the following week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So... and then you get into mandatory minicamp and stuff like that.
Media is allowed on Thursday of this week. That's their first day when they get to watch.
OTA 3.
So that's when you'll see some of the video posted and some of the photos posted online, and whether or not some of those folks kind of bend the rules a little bit, well, that's on them. But that's not on us because we don't bend the rules.
Yeah, so OTA, we just break them. OTAs next week, OTA 4 Tuesday, OTA 5 Wednesday, OTA 6 is Friday next week. And then you have the first week of June. You have 4 OTAs, Monday the 3rd, Tuesday the 4th, Thursday the 6th, Friday the 7th.
Right.
And then you have mandatory minicamp from June 11th to June 13th. Though the last couple of years, that June 13th mandatory minicamp day, it's kind of like a team barbecue. They're out there playing like horseshoes and stuff like that. So I wouldn't expect a whole lot that last day of minicamp. And then they're off. We'll be taking at least 1 week off from Big Blue Kickoff Live, maybe 2, depending on how it goes. Just because we want to make sure Pearson is rested and relaxed and energized. We don't want him putting in hamstrings in August. We want to make sure he's nice and rested by the time we get
just short field stuff
camp.
So far.
Yeah, exactly. Short field stuff. He can only screen so many calls per show. We can't take more than 5 or 6 calls. His phone arm is going to get tired bringing it up and down. So,
well, he needs some time off to shoot that miniseries now that he's a Hollywood star.
Load management, by the way, big time. Well, that's the other thing. He has an agent now. So I have to negotiate some of the stuff that he's doing, given his work on the schedule release video.
Yeah, yesterday's price is not today's price.
Yes, correct. If you're wondering who the guy was on the schedule release video, that's Pearson.
That's him.
He did a nice job.
Absolutely.
Yes, very good interviewing skills.
I thought the birds gave him some great answers.
Wonderful. I agree. It's very good. Excellent work. 201-939-4513. 201-939-4513. Hashtag Giants Chat. By the way, folks, for the next few weeks, don't abuse this, but I'm going to lift the 1 call a week limit here just because there's not a lot going on right now. We can have longer conversations. You have some, maybe some topics that are a little bit different. Have more open conversation, more detailed conversation about stuff that's maybe not, some super specific stuff that maybe we can't get to at other times of the year, esoteric stuff. This is the time of year to do it. So we'll lift the 1 call a week thing. Don't abuse it. Don't call 5 times because then I'll have to put it back in. But we want to give everyone a chance to get in. But again, if you guys want to call more often, you certainly can over the next few weeks. All right, let's go to Mike in Florida. He's going to lead us off today. Mike, what's going on?
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking the call. I was just wondering, I know you covered, I was going to ask about injuries, but I know you covered Daniel Jones already, a.k.a. the ghost of MetLife, because he never leaves. But how is Aaron Robinson? Have you guys seen him out there? I don't know if there's proof that he's a real person or how that's going.
Aaron Robinson is a real person. I can guarantee you that. But Brian Daboll actually did address this when he talked to the media last week. That knee injury he had last year was not as simple, or 2 years ago now, right? Was not a simple ACL.
Blew the whole thing out.
Yeah,
it was horrible.
It was a lot of damage in there. So
horrible.
He's still honestly working his way back. He's not doing team stuff yet. And again, we can't report that based on what we saw in practice, but that's what Brian Daboll said when he spoke to the media last week. So that's why we're able to say that.
And we have no idea what his schedule is. I just keep thinking back to his skill set when he first got here, and there is no doubt about his skills at the time. Now, post-knee problem, I have no idea how he's going to ultimately land after he rehabs, or if he's going to be able to compete for a job or not. I just don't know the answer to that. I just know that when he got here, he had a really nice toolbox.
Big physical player.
Yep. with some length too.
Yeah, I think. Oh, sorry to interrupt. I feel like that's a big question Giants fans had. We had that big hole in the cornerbacks and the cornerback room, and it seems like he played decent in his first couple games, but then you would think he tore his ACL in 1991 with the way his rehab has gone, and we just kind of been in the dark.
But it was more than that. That's the problem.
That's the thing. It wasn't just an ACL. That was the problem.
I mean,
if it was just an ACL, he would have been back playing last year. It wasn't just an ACL. That's the issue.
His knee was shredded. Is really what it comes down to.
Gotcha. That sucks to hear. And then, do we have anything about Zudu? Again, I may have missed the Dayball interview and whatnot, but Zudu seemed like he's flashed his rookie year, and all these what did Carl Banks and Bob Papa call them, the jabronis or whatever, the film people that they say they kind of gave up on him, even though he flashed. He played a couple games as a rookie, and then last year he was playing offensive tackle on an island, and I don't think he had a fair shot. I'm a fan of him because of his story and all that, and I would love to see Zudu. Is there any status update on him?
Zudu was practicing.
Yeah. He worked really hard during the offseason of rehab, and he came along really well.
That's great. And that kind of leads into my question about offensive line. With the new offensive line coach, is he the one that looks like Dable?
A little bit, yeah. A little bit, yeah.
Like cousins.
Well, look, Brian Dable had a very serious conversation this offseason. That the guys we're going to bring in, bald dudes with beards. That's it. Those all the guys are bringing in. You can't have any hair up top. You got to have hair on the face. And if you check those two boxes, then the Giants can hire you as a coach. It was really that simple.
That's awesome. And I figure that's why, because those questions about whether who is who, and that might be why Dable has the rumored BBL, the weight loss that he had. So it's good to see that we have these new coaches. It's just fresh blood. It's nice because we've had so much problems despite the coaching changes in the past, but. This guy's like an established offensive line coach, and the terrorist Bobby Johnson. I don't know if he was bad or not, despite what some guys say, but it just seemed like nobody was. They were sad to see him go from the Bills fans' perspective, and then what he did to Neil. From my understanding, I'm not trained like you guys may be, but Neil just had different sets, and it's just he's making us burger flippers upset. So I'm trying to. I'm trying to find the optimism and all these changes and whatnot, and I try to stay positive. So it would just be good to see if the offensive line actually comes together and does something this year for once.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate the call. And then look, I get it. I mean, I like Bobby. I got along with Bobby. I thought he was a good dude.
We all did.
But the offensive line clearly did not make the progress he wanted it to make. Whether that's on him or the players, I think a lot of that was injuries last year, obviously. But did Evan Neal make the progress you'd like him to make? No. I also would have loved for Evan Neal not to have a knee injury his first year that messed up the second half of his year, and an ankle injury last year that messed up the last, 10 games of his season last year? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, you hope that the reason you bring in a new offensive line coach is that he comes in and he's able to get Evan Neal going and get these guys working together better to deal with some of those twists and stunts that we talked about to kind of get things on the right path here.
I don't want to talk about Bobby Johnson other than to say this. He was a really good guy. You're right. We all got along with him. And the fact that Dable, in his first ever head coaching job, brought him down from Buffalo makes you believe he had complete confidence that it was going to work out. Obviously. I mean, he knew him from his days with the Bills.
Well, he was in Indy, though, right? That was his last stop before he came here, Bobby Johnson, correct? Wasn't he the assistant?
Well, he was with the Colts and the Bills his previous two jobs.
Correct, yes.
But I do believe that they crossed paths.
No, yeah, they did. Absolutely.
And so he knew him. And he didn't bring him here to fail. I mean, he made sure that he brought in the best coaching staff he could possibly muster when he took this head coaching job. And so, for whatever reason, it did not work out.
And you're right, Paul. I'm sorry. He was the assistant O-line with the Colts in 18, then he was the Bills 19 to 21.
Right.
You're correct.
Those were his last two jobs before he got here. Mm-hmm. So, here's the thing. Now, the change was made. The production was not what it needed to be. I'm sure that Brian thought long and hard about it. And now he goes to a guy who, as you mentioned a little while ago, we've said many times on the program, Dante Sarnecchia is the guru in recent years of offensive line coaches.
It's him and it's Jeff Statlin. Those are the 1A and 1B offensive line coaches.
They're as good as they come.
And Statlin being with the Eagles offensive line coach, by the way.
They're as good as they come. And so when you consider that Dable has the Patriots connection, and obviously, you're looking at Brasillo, who has a Patriots connection. He's got some background and some thread there, but he's also got the Sarnecchia situation. You put that together, I'm sure that Brian has complete and total confidence that this is going to be the right hire now, and he's got a lot of reasons to believe that.
And look, what you like about what Brasillo did with the Raiders, and we've talked about this before, but we haven't talked about it in a while. Maybe some of the fans out there don't remember the conversation. What you like about Brasillo with the Raiders is that he, aside from Colton Miller, who was a first-round pick, he took 4 other guys who were either journeyman free agent veterans or really low draft picks, and he put them together, and the Raiders had a competent offensive line. Was it like a top 10 offensive line?
What's the word?
No, it was competent.
What's the word? Functional.
Right, and it allowed that, and they ran the ball 2 years ago with Josh Jacobs extremely
Sure did.
well. He had one of the best years of his career. And then last year, they had a rookie quarterback back there, and they did a pretty good job protecting Aiden O'Connell. So he did a lot with not a ton of resources thrown at the line, and the Giants, between Illuminor, Runyon, Neal, a first-round pick, John Michael Schmidt, second-round pick, a lot more resources have been thrown at this offensive line than the offensive line he had with the Raiders.
Well, he didn't have a Thomas playing left tackle.
Well, Cole Miller's a good player.
Good, but he's not Andrew Thomas.
Right, but even the other guys on the line, you didn't have the first-round pick
Absolutely
in Neal, second-round
agree.
pick in John Michael Schmidt. You didn't have that.
Correct.
So you hope now with theoretically higher resource talented players that you can even get better results here with the Giants. But we'll have to wait and see. You know, you hope, but until you see it, you just don't know.
And just so you folks understand, Antonio Pierce, the head coach there, has still very tight connections to this organization, and he gave him a great recommendation. When the call came in, Pierce said, hey, man, you got to hire this guy. The reason that he was done with the Raiders is that Pierce changed his offensive coordinator after the season. The new OC, in most NFL circles, the OC is going to take somebody who is symbiotic as his offensive line coach. And so when
someone that knows his system and knows what he wants to do.
Correct. Right? Especially because of the run game is such an important part of it.
Of course.
So the new OC out in Vegas wanted his own O-line coach. That put Brasillo in limbo because even though Pierce was a big advocate for him, the OC had his own guy he wanted. So that put Brasillo in a little bit of a sticky spot, like what's going to happen here? So Pierce gives a great recommendation to the Giants, knowing they needed somebody, and of course, it all worked out, and Brasillo winds up coming to the Giants. So let me make it very clear to you folks, he was not dispatched from the Raiders because of poor performance. And I just think it's important for people to understand that.
Yeah,
sometimes it's circumstances.
Luke Getsy, the former Bears offensive coordinator, who got brought in to
and I don't know who he hired as the O-line coach. Is that on the sheet too?
It's not on this sheet.
Yeah,
but
I don't know.
Check that for
I don't know who it was that he brought in, but it was his own guy. And quite frankly, that happens a lot in the NFL. It's guys bring in their own guys from their own inner circle, and it has nothing to do with the quality of the guy who was there before.
I didn't realize that AP brought in Marvin Lewis to be the assistant head coach in Vegas. That's a good hire. Let's see. Oh, how about that? Edgar Bennett is the wide receivers coach, the former
Packer.
Is that the former running back? No, it can't
guy?
be. Different. It's his experience 32 years. So that's not Edgar Bennett, the former running back. James Craig was hired as the offensive line coach for the Raiders. He 8 years as a coach in the NFL, 26 years of coaching experience, means a lot in college. So he might have come from the college ranks here. Let's see. Joined the Raiders after spending 2 seasons as the assistant offensive line coach with the 49ers from 22 to 23. So he's a guy that came over from Shanahan's staff.
How about that?
So
in any event, I only bring that up to let you know that Brasillo came highly recommended and with a thumbs up from Antonio Pierce, and I think that means something.
And Bobby Johnson, by the way, did get hired as the Commanders' offensive lines coach. He picked up another job pretty quickly in the league. All right, let's go to James in Georgia. He's up next. Hey, James, how are you?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
What's up?
Long weekend. Let's start with the obvious. Let's go Rangers. We're still alive. A couple of quick ones. I know Boston did it one time with, I think, baseball and football. But has there ever been a team to have won all 4 major championships in a row?
In the same year?
Yeah.
No.
I don't think it's ever happened, right?
No.
Okay. It was close.
I think Tampa did Tampa do it? Did Tampa have the Lightning and the Bucks maybe in the same year? Does that sound right? Or maybe the Rays and the Lightning in the same year or something like that. I think that sounds right.
All 4 though, I can't remember that ever happened.
I think Tampa did have it too one year.
And And then with more sports just coming in, like this city, New York City, although I live in Kingsland, Georgia, born in the Bronx, this city is starving for a championship. And the Liberty was so close last year. I mean, I was calling up last year, let's go Liberty. And had they done it, I would have been like, yeah, our WNBA team is the best. We got us a chip, I'd have been talking my trash on them, But let's move on. I actually called to say, with OTA starting, have you guys seen any new drills that they're doing that you haven't seen other O-line coaches or defensive coordinators do with the guys, just to try to mix things up? I want to say to Pearson, he has done one show on Big Blue Kickoff Live, so we do know his face, but I think that was the best reveal video out of all the 32 teams, just because of the value of it.
How much did he pay you? How much? Come on. Fess up. How much did he pay you?
Me and Pearson go way back. That's my guy. Have you called this week, James? Oh yeah, I'm sorry. You call back again next week. The very next day, we're allowing more than one caller this week. I'm like, oh, got me. All right, But that's my guy, Pearson. And,
appreciate it.
Yes, sir. So with that's really what I call it. What have y'all noticed? Only been one day that has really had a change in the schedule or what the guys are doing out there.
James, I didn't notice anything. I didn't notice anything particularly new or different in terms of drills today, to be honest with you. I'm going to keep a closer eye on that tomorrow. I mentioned, some of the specific stuff they were doing on with the O-line and the defense to start the show, but other than that, I don't have much to add to that.
Yeah, nothing struck me as like totally out of the ordinary, if that's what you're asking.
Unfortunately, James, I've seen a lot of different offensive line coaches in here over the past 10 years.
Oh, boy.
So I don't think there's a drill I haven't seen at this point, but if there is, I'll let you know.
Let's put it this way. It looks nothing like what it was decades ago, but in terms of recent years, this is what it is.
All right. I got two more things. I'm taking my son to Evan Neal's football camp in a couple of weeks.
Nice.
On Okeechobee, and I'm gonna be excited to get his signature on my Leatherhead helmet that I got. I'm not in love with the uniforms, but I like them. They're okay. And,
wait. You said Leatherhead helmet?
Yeah. What is that?
Yeah.
Is it like an old 1920s style helmet?
Yeah. I don't
really?
have a real one. It's a replica from like a fan shop.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, but it's in the colors of the style of the jerseys that they're about to wear now.
Okay, nice.
And I got a couple of giant signatures on it from when I went to camp a couple of years ago. I got Colin's autograph on there, but anyway. My last one I'll leave off with because, when I took my son to camp over this past weekend, I asked him how many new drills did they show you at the college level because he's going into the 11th grade or whatnot. And so with it being early in the off season, how much can the teams actually give the guys knowing that a quarter of them, if not more, aren't even going to be on the team? You can't roll out everything and then somebody get picked up by Dallas or a division rival, and now they have
no, James, you'd be surprised. They actually do. By the time they're done here in the spring, they will have gone through a full installation of everything the team does.
You have to.
And then they will reinstall everything again from scratch when they come back here in training camp in the summer.
Because that's a reinforcement round.
Thank you, James.
Is what that is. That's a reinforcement round. You have to give everything to them now because all these coaches believe that it's the repetitive nature of what you do during the offseason that allows you to produce properly during the season.
In fact, I think they'll actually do everything through the spring. Then mandatory minicamp, it's the second reinstallation, and then they'll do the third reinstallation when you get to the summer. So
repetition.
So there's actually a Wikipedia article on this, by the way. So Philadelphia is the only city to have all four major sports teams play in their respective championship game or series in the same season. That was 1980 with the Phillies, Sixers, Eagles, and Flyers, but only one of the four teams actually won. That was the Phillies.
Okay.
Tampa had all 3 of its major sports teams play in their respective championships in the 2020 season. Rays, Bucks, and Lightning, with the Lightning and the Bucks winning their championships. So that's what I knew the Tampa had one of those, too.
Okay.
New York actually had that with the Giants and the Yankees in 1927.
Sure.
The Rangers and Yankees in 28. The Rangers and Giants in 33.
Well, 86, right? Mets and Giants.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
Yeah. Giants and Mets in 86, obviously. I guess the Knicks were 70, right? And the Mets were 69, so that wouldn't have counted there.
No.
More recently, L.A., Lakers and Dodgers in 20. Patriots and Red Sox did it twice in 04 and 18. Lakers and Angels in 02. And then the Devils and the Yankees in 2000, if you want to count that.
Well, who won the World Series in 56 when the Giants beat the Bears?
Oh, the Giants and Yankees.
It was Yankees,
yes,
too.
That was 56.
I couldn't remember for
Yes.
sure. There was one or two years in there during that decade where the Yankees didn't win it. I wasn't sure which one it was.
Let's go to Jeff in Maine. Jeff's up next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hey, Jeff.
Hey, how's it going?
What's up?
So I've got a candidate for the worst bold prediction of all time. That would be mine from last year. And that was that Adoree Jackson would win the defensive MVP for the year.
That wasn't too good.
No, it was not.
I was actually slightly worried a couple weeks ago when you guys were talking about bad predictions, and I was worried for a second that you might actually bring up some of the callers' predictions. I didn't know if you kept track of them.
Oh, no. I have them. I have them sitting in my Google Doc here. I figured on a slow day we don't get calls. I was going to go through them. I still have them. Don't worry.
Is this one down?
God.
Is his on there or no?
I do not see his on here,
No?
actually, believe it or not.
See, you could have spared yourself, but in the interest of self-defamation, you have put it out there.
Hey, that's honesty.
Nice.
You like that.
Right.
Stand by your bad, bold predictions.
There you
That's
go.
what we want.
Well, my prediction this year is that I'm not going to make any predictions because I don't want to jinx anybody. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I would like to talk about the cornerbacks for a second.
Sure.
I think that that could be the one area on the roster that we could maybe still get a little more depth in. And the thing with Adoree Jackson, I think that the moving him into slot last year, in retrospect, wasn't a good move. And even though he had a rep for being a good run, tackler, I think just his small stature, made it like illogical to have him make have to make so many more tackles and stuff.
Well, Jeff, given they bailed on that experiment about 3 weeks into the season, I think they agreed with you that it didn't work. And I think, I'm not sure if the tackling was necessarily the biggest issue. I just think covering that two-way go out of the slot is just something that he was not comfortable with, and it didn't work.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure. Now, I will give him credit for being a team player enough to have a good attitude about giving it a shot.
Yeah.
And
he's a great dude. Love Adoree. Really good dude.
Well, this gets to my other point. He's as far as I know, he hasn't lost any speed, and I know he's worked with Shane Bowen before, and I think we still need help for outside cornerbacks. So I guess my question is, if we could get him cheap enough, would you favor re-signing him?
It's a good question. I think what you do here, Jeff, you go through the OTAs and minicamp, you see where you're at, and then if you talk to the coaches, you talk to Jerome Henderson, you talk to Shane Bowen, and they think they need extra help. He's familiar with Shane Bowen, to your point. I like Adoree. I would be open to it if the coaching staff, thinks he has enough left in the tank to help. I'd be fine with it. I just don't know what the front office and the coaching staff thinks of him given their experience with him last year.
The Giants are really tight with the cap numbers as it stands, and we all know that can be fluid, but they still are pretty tight. Now, if something happens, I've said this on the program before, if something happens that Waller is not here post June 1st, that will free up a chunk of money. So now, if you wanted to have that conversation, it'd be a bit more realistic.
And you'd still be tight, by the way, for in-season moves. Even in that situation.
I mean, you're not exactly going to get a Brinks truck backing up to the front door.
Right.
But it will allow you more room to breathe.
Sure.
Which means if there is a veteran that you'd like to at least talk to and see if something can work out in a very economically friendly situation, you could discuss it. Right now, as it stands today, I don't see how they would scrape up enough nickels and dimes together.
Well, I mean, you could always
bring in.
You could always move from, renegotiate, put some, kick
and
some
we
money
know
down
how
the road.
the GM really doesn't want to do that.
I know, but they had to do it last year with
I know.
So,
but anyway, Adori's an accomplished enough player. I don't think he's going to take pennies. I think it's going to take a little more than that.
Depends what kind of offers he has on the table.
Oh, that
right?
That too.
What else you got, Jeff?
True. I mean, I was thinking maybe a couple million plus incentives, but yeah, I mean, he would have to be into it too. But I guess I'm just worried. I mean, Banks is going to be the number 1 cornerback, and say McLeod and Flott are probably solid number 3 cornerbacks, but that's pretty much all you got out there, So I don't know. So whatever. Like you said, whether the coaches, want to or not. And so I do have another question on a completely different topic, actually, if I could.
Sure.
And that is, how much fun is it to be able to be on the sideline sometimes? I'm guessing a lot. And have you ever had any, close calls with, people crashing into you?
Well, I have never been on the sideline. Well, I should take that back. There was one season where I wasn't actually in the booth producing radio, where I was able to spend a little bit of time on the sideline during the game, and it's amazing how fast everything moves down there, and how physical it is. I don't think until you stand down there and you see it, there's no appreciation, and Jeff, appreciate the call, for, you can listen off the air, for how fast and physical this game is when you're live. Obviously, I've been on the sideline during practice a lot, and yeah, I've come close. I mean, balls have come in my direction, and, you make sure you're always paying attention. You back up out of the way, but I've never even been knocked down before. Paul, you're on the sideline during the game a lot more than I am because you don't have any responsibility. So I know you have some stories.
Never been hit, okay, because I'm on the sideline for road games.
You've hit other people.
Home games, I'm upstairs in the box until the latter stages of the fourth quarter. Road games, I'm usually on the sideline for the whole game. The one time that I was really, really, really fearful, there's twice that I almost got hit, but I wasn't really fearful at the time in Seattle. A couple of years back in Seattle, I was standing next to Mike Malarkey, the photographer, while we were in Seattle, and there was a play that came right over to us, and Malarkey got hit and taken out. I did not. I was standing next to him, and he wound up getting hit, and I didn't.
Did you get out of there on time?
Well, because I saw what was happening, and I stepped back.
Did you pull Malarkey with you? Or you just
I did not.
To drive?
Well, he's busy enough with all his.
You pushed him in front of him.
I did not do that. But he had all his equipment and stuff, and his tripod, and so you know what? He got whacked.
As Pearson and I, who have done this for a long time, Pearson, what's the rule of thumb if you're next to somebody with a camera on the sideline and someone's coming at you?
You pull them back.
Thank you.
Because they're looking in the lens, they can't even tell how close the play is.
That's correct.
I yell, look out.
No,
that's what I do. I don't physically
you take
grab
them by
somebody.
the shirt and your hips and you pull them back.
I don't grab somebody because I think it's like.
Wait, time out. I've heard multiple people on the sideline tell me that you've almost physically assaulted them after giant touchdowns.
Howard Cross in particular.
That's the hardest I've been hit. When we score and Paul
Howard
hits me
Cross
on the
in
back.
particular.
Yes.
All right, anyway.
Everybody, no, I've had multiple people complain to me about how you hit them physically violently after giant scores.
So now, here's the time I almost got hit. Let me go back to the question. Ben Jarvis Green Ellis, do you remember him?
Of course.
Running back for the New England Patriots.
Yeah.
We are up in Foxborough.
Long hair.
And I'm on the Giants sideline, which the Patriots are going right to left, and I'm on the near sideline with the Giants.
Preseason or?
I want to say it was a preseason
Probably
game.
the last final preseason game,
I want to say it was a preseason game. And Ben Jarvis Green Ellis takes a run.
He's a big back, too.
Off left tackle. Oh, big? Yeah. He's thick.
Yeah, he's big
thick.
back.
He takes a run off left tackle. Now, I always stand down forward from the line of scrimmage because I want the play coming toward me,
of course,
so that I could see better.
Yep.
To me, it makes no sense to be on the sideline standing behind the play. You can't see enough to really dissect what happened.
The only thing you can see is the offensive line play.
It's terrible.
That's it.
It's terrible. So I always, if you'll notice me at the stadium, I'm always running to the opposite where the ball is so I can have the ball come to me.
Right.
Okay? So I'm standing on the sideline, and Ben Jarvis Green Ellis goes behind left tackle, and he's coming over, and he's at the hash marks, and he's coming out by the numbers, and I'm watching him, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, it's just a regular running play. He's going to get hit, go down. Well, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he's able to elude the tackler who I thought was going to bring him down, cut it to the outside, and he makes this darting move toward the sideline. John, I took a breath, man. I was scared.
Did you bail? You got out of there?
So as I was taking a step back, he veers not only toward the sideline, but then toward me. He literally, I felt his breeze. That's how close he was to me. I felt his breeze as he ran out of bounds and ran in front of me. I actually felt his breeze.
So if he got tackled out of bounds, you would have got nailed.
Absolutely.
But the fact that no one got him
Correct.
is the only reason why you.
Oh, I would have been plastered. I would have been flattened.
What former Giant should I blame for not tackling him into you?
That I can't tell you. But I do remember this. I do remember Chris Carino was in the booth during that game.
Oh, that's right. I remember he mentioned it.
And I remember Carino chuckling, and
you were the silent reporter for us that game on the radio, right? I remember this now.
And he had to mention how I almost got plastered by Ben Jarvis Green Ellis.
I recall this.
And that's the closest I've ever come. I literally felt his breeze as he ran by me. I mean, it doesn't get any closer than that.
And as Brian Baldinger has pointed out, you do run up and down the sidelines over the course of games.
I'm very he calls me Batman.
Yes.
I am very agile.
Who is that
mobile.
media member running up and down the sidelines trying to keep up with Saquon Barkley?
Well, you want the story behind that too?
Of course.
Okay, here's the story behind that. When Brian Baldinger called me Batman and made a viral video online.
Really, the only part of the story is that you're an insane person. But other than that,
okay.
What's the other part?
Remember
of the story?
what I just said to you a minute ago, how I want to be in front of the play because
yeah.
I want it to be coming toward me so I could see what happens?
Yeah.
Well, Barkley gets the ball, and he starts taking off, and I was remiss. I had not gone far enough downfield to be able to see the play coming toward me.
So your pre-snap preparation was poor.
My pre-snap preparation was poor. I'm actually embarrassed because it's one of the few times I wasn't far enough downfield to be able to see the play correctly. I did not appropriately adjust my positioning.
That tells me you were chatting with somebody and you
I
got
might have
distracted.
been. I might have been.
I'm not surprised.
So in
Probably
any event,
Cheney, right?
Who knows? In any event, I wasn't downfield far enough. So now Barkley gets the ball on the Giants sideline, right? There was the right side of the offense. I think it was a pass. It was a short pass. And he takes off. Now, I realized that at that very moment, I'm like, oh, he's got a chance to go all the way. And I'm not down there, and I'm not going to be able to see this play develop into the secondary. So that's when I took off. And I started sprinting toward the goal line so that I could at least try to get there when he got there, or maybe beat him, so that if there was a play down there, I could get a good look at it. Well, anyway, Baldinger got it off the video screen. He saw it on TV, did a screen capture, put it up on Twitter, became viral, and he labeled me Batman for chasing down a villain. And that's the story behind that.
That Batman would not have been able to fight any crime successfully, by the way, just for the record. Been knocked out by everybody. The Penguin would have gotten you. You would have had no shot.
Look, all I know is this.
Who's your Robin?
I don't have a Robin on the sidelines. Nobody wants to team up with me.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Everyone wants to run away from
Come on.
All right, folks, go check out the Giants Huddle podcast. We have our second bracket challenge podcast is up here, so now I'm assuming, right? Yeah, because we have our round 2 of our Giants 100 bracket challenge, the greatest plays bracket. Go check it out, giants.com/bracket. We have our Bob Pop and I record a podcast dissecting the plays in each one of the 2 brackets, so go check that out on the Giants Huddle podcast. It's on the Giants mobile app, giants.com/podcast, and your favorite podcast platforms. Also, some good stuff on the rookies coming up later this week. What we did, we compiled all of our BBK interviews with the reporters covering the Giants draft picks, and then Paul recorded 3 or 4 more that we hadn't done over the course of the process. We'll put those all together into one podcast to give you some insight onto what these guys did in college. So make sure you go check that out on the Giants Huddle podcast whenever you have the opportunity. And we appreciate you guys leaving a 5-star positive review on Apple Podcasts when you do have the time as well. All right, let's go to Hugo in New Jersey. He's up next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hi, Hugo.
Hey, good afternoon, guys.
What's up?
Hey, John, I have a couple of questions, and then that'll, I think, lead me into some comments. But the first question, when the NFL did their top 100 back in 2019, they included coaches. Do you know if the Giants' top 100 will only be
It is
players?
players only.
Players only.
Yes.
Okay. Fair enough. And, one of the things that I've noted in the best plays brackets, it's sometimes there's a little bit of overlap between, let's call it, performance, right? So here's an example. OC's 6th sack. I mean, that play in and of itself wasn't very remarkable. I mean, he was beating Winston Justice all day.
It was a milestone sack, though. It was a milestone sack.
It was, but then there's also like the triplet run. That was really more about the championship game. You know what I mean? So here's my question. Are you guys planning like a top 100 performance?
I don't believe there's been an announcement with that yet, so I will not make a comment on that one.
Okay. So let me just...
but Hugo, to your point, we do understand the difference between plays and performances, so I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. And, I quickly wrote down 25 performances, and, there's some very obvious ones. Phil Simms, Super Bowl 21, Eli, the 2 NFC championship games, Kerry Collins, the 2000 NFC championship game. Let me just give you 3 performances that people may not readily think about.
Sure.
Carl Banks, Super Bowl 21.
Absolutely.
Played
Defensive MVP of the game.
Yeah, and he would have been the MVP had Phil not had such an extraordinarily good game. Lawrence Taylor in New Orleans, 1988.
Yeah. Who doesn't? Wait a minute. You just said people don't think about. Who doesn't think about it? That's LT. That's LT's signature game.
Younger fans don't.
Yeah,
I think everyone has anyone who knows anything about LT history. That's the signature game. Bill Parcells has said a million times over. That's the signature game because he inspired and willed his team to win that day.
True, but the reason I say that is because it's not the kind of thing that's readily run on NFL films because it was an in-season game in a season when the Giants didn't make the playoffs.
I've probably seen it about 3 billion times, to be honest with you, but go ahead.
You're not normal.
Okay.
I guess I'm not.
And then 1986 NFC Championship game, this was really awful. Maybe Sean Landetta, the punter, shifted field position, and it was essentially a hurricane. So I just wanted I mentioned to you guys I'd be talking about a little bit of history as things came to mind. So
those are 3 excellent performances. 100%.
Sean's teammates have often said he was the most valuable player of that game because of the way he dictated field position in the game. So, and in fact, as you probably know, that's when Bill, because of the coin toss, decided he wanted to take the wind as his advantage instead of getting the ball. And in those days, everybody automatically took the ball. Okay? Nobody was thinking about what side of the field you're going to want to be on. But Parcells, understanding the conditions, he decided, okay, forget the ball. I'm playing the wind.
Yeah. Okay. So John, I read through the press releases on the 100th season.
Yep.
And I noted a name and a pretty interesting title. Nilay Shah as Senior Vice President of Marketing and Brand Strategy.
Yes, our fearless leader.
Wasn't there a Nilay Shah that was a one-time affiliated with this show, or was that someone else?
No, Nilay has been with us. I mean, he basically came in the same year I did in 2007. He's been here a long time. He was an intern before that. Then he came in and basically ran the digital department. So Nilay's been with us a very long time.
I remember him when he was an intern. Actually, that's how far back. Wow, so he's done like very well for himself, and that's like a very interesting title, which got me thinking. And so I looked up the front office, and actually, as I scrolled down in the marketing department, I saw your name, John. So you're part of the front office, and you have a very nice title. And by the way, my recommendation to John Mara would be that they make you Chief Content Officer because between your work on the huddle, draft season, BBKL, the radio post, I mean, you're just like everywhere.
Checks in the mail, Hugo. Thank you.
Well, look, I got to say, one, you guys have brought in some really significant sponsors to some of these platforms, and I'm not a big social media guy, just given my age, but I understand that people who do podcasts try to create what are called communities, and I think you've created a very strong, passionate community, and you're an extension, really, of that branding and creating fan loyalty. So I think you guys provide sort of an invaluable service to the franchise. But it does lead me, to one thought, which was many years ago, you probably wouldn't see a position like that, right, at an NFL franchise. And I remember when I was a kid just being shocked at how many Steelers, Raiders, Dolphins, Cowboy fans there were in the tri-state area, just because technology had sort of disintermediated the regional monopoly on fan share of mind.
Yeah. You don't have to be local anymore to root for a team, which is why so many of our fans come from out of state.
Just remember, back in the 70s, those were the teams that were winning too.
Well,
so it was really easy for young kids to root for the Steelers and the Cowboys. And
they're also on national TV all the time.
No doubt.
Stuff, right?
No doubt.
National TV, right. Even though the local papers only cover the Giants and Jets, and the local, those were, the games that were covered in the local. People actually sat down and watched the nightly news, believe it or not. But that actually raises a concern for me, right? Which is, in this day and age where people have so many choices, if you're bad for 20 years like the Giants were in the 70s and 80s, I think the loss of a generation of fan loyalty, call it the fan pipeline, is going to be exacerbated just because of the technology and the information that's available.
Oh, no, Hugo, look, I think you're right. I think in a day and age where fans can, and kids especially now can just pick, and not even teams, sometimes players to root for, and it's not always the local team now. A lot of times it's familial, right? If you have your parents that are big Giant fans, they'll make their kids Giant fans, and it goes to the route. But you're right. I mean, if your team doesn't win a lot over a long period of time, you are going to generate fewer fans. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
I'll go a step further. To me, fantasy football and gambling
that's a big part of it,
has now taken away a lot of loyalty to a certain helmet.
Absolutely.
Because now folks are more concerned about their fantasy team or their money that they're throwing up against some site. So,
I mean, I've seen Paul root against the Giants many times because of his fantasy football team. It happens all the time.
Well,
sure.
I want to,
Mr. Fantasy over here.
I want to bring this full circle.
Yeah.
Right? Because Joe Shane has been in the media calling for some patience. And I agree, by the way. I think Joe Shane should get five years, right? If he can't get it done in an old Soviet-style 5-year plan time period, well, then maybe it's time to reconsider, right?
Soviet-style, I like it.
The reality is that there's got to be a sense of urgency here because we're, call it, 10 to 12 years into bad football. I don't think you want to lose in a competitive environment, I don't think you want to lose a generation. You'll never lose a fan like me.
Right? Hugo, you're right. It's very important
Yeah.
for ownership for the team to start winning football games. They are quite tired of losing seasons after losing seasons. There's
And
no
trust
question
me,
about that.
That's for their own mental well-being beyond anything else.
Yeah.
This organization can't stand to lose, folks. If you don't understand that by now, you haven't been paying attention.
Okay. Well, John, you asked for someone to call in and talk about some off-the-wall topics.
No, that was fine.
Oblige.
No, this is good, Hugo. No, I appreciate it, and appreciate the call. Thank you. Yeah, have a good one. This is the perfect time to do that. Absolutely. And you're right. Good memory. Yeah, because Nilay used to when he was. Again, when I got here in 2007, he had just been promoted. He was an intern previously. He kind of came up, took over for Kevin Corbett, who ran our digital side. And then he's grown very rapidly up the food chain, and he's been a big part of allowing us to do more of this sort of stuff, which has been great. So
his desk was opposite our camera in this room.
Yeah, that's right.
And then
we used to take over his desk when we first started the show, if you remember.
And then when he got put upstairs, this room
used to be his office and became mine.
Became BBK and John's office.
Now my office desk is off to the side. Guys, this is like basically an office. So we have their studio here. My desk is over there where I work, which is off camera. Pearson's on the other side over there. It's not a large room.
No, it's not.
We as most New York City people know, we're not blessed with a lot of space in this area, so we make the most of the space that we're granted.
Well, what would you say? Maybe 2 or 3, maybe 4 Dexter Lawrences, and there wouldn't be any room for anything else?
Let's go to Doug in New Mexico. He'll wrap us up today. Hey, Doug, how are you?
Hey, how you doing?
What's up?
Just a little history. When the first game I went to was in Yankee Stadium in, I think it was '63, and the guy that lived across the street came out gave us 2 tickets to the Giants game. He worked for L&M, and he my father took me and my brother, which made 3 people. So my father took and put a $5 bill between the 2 tickets, and I can still remember him walking through the gate and just separating them tickets so the guy could see the $5 bill. And the guy just said, well, he's going to have to sit on your lap.
There you
about
go.
10 years old.
You know, there are there are so many stories either like that or about guys who snuck in through the Yankee Stadium bleachers.
I love it.
To get into games. Of course, today with all the electronic digital stuff that goes on, you know, there are no more regular tickets anymore. Those things would never be possible.
Yeah. And the other story I have, I guess following football was my mother, actually, because she went to St. Cecilia's.
Lombardi's
in
place.
New Jersey. Yeah, and she had, I got 2 yearbooks with Vince Lombardi's signature in them.
Very cool.
So she had to watch the Packers because to see how old he was getting. So and that was the only reason she would watch football. But that was kind of like our Sunday things and everything. But to bring it up today is I think all the stuff that like against Daniels, the quarterback and everything, the offensive line just has to get better. That's the main problem. And I think Joe Shane has really done a good job of getting better talent, and hopefully from at least what the coach did in the Raiders, I think he can help that out a lot.
Yeah, look, you hope so. And appreciate the call. And it's funny, I was listening just to build on the fans' point. And then I want to give my quick schedule release take 2. I haven't done that yet. We started a couple minutes late. We'll go to like 32 and we'll say goodbye. I was listening to the Athletic Football Show, which I've promoted here a lot. Robert Mays does a great job on that show. And he was doing they were doing their NFC East offseason show. And he goes, yeah, I went back. And, you know, he does his work. He tries to watch 3 or 4 games on film of each team before he talks about them on the show. He goes, I went back and I watched the Giants, and I was trying to figure out what part of the year to watch to actually get a feel for like what the offense is. He goes, well, I tried to watch something from the first 5 games when Daniel Jones was healthy, and it was a waste because they had no chance. You couldn't even run an offense with the way they were playing up front.
Okay.
So he goes, the best games to watch was at the end with Tyrod Taylor, and the line was a little bit more stable. But he goes, even then, like, the offensive line really did not give the offense a chance, and you can't even judge. And this was his quote, not mine, folks. This is from a nonpartisan source that just went back and rewatched the games in the offseason, and he said, look, you watch it, and it was non-functional because of the way the offensive line played. And until you can improve that, to the caller's point, you're not going to have a sense for what Brian Dable is, what Daniel Jones is. And again, I heard it. He was on with Bob Sturm, who covers the Cowboys down there in Dallas, and they were kind of going through all 4 teams in the NFC East. And that was his take from watching the Giants. And I sat there and I'm like, yeah, I know.
Right.
But it was just good to have somebody else that's not as close to it as we are watch it and come back and get the exact same reaction from it.
Telling you that the circumstances were so dire that it's impossible to evaluate.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
And anyway, you had a chance with Cross and Casillas last week to do the schedule release
reaction.
we did. And we had our Giants Huddle podcast episode, so you can go back and get my larger form reaction to that. And I just thinking about it a little bit more, Paul, and I'll just close with this. Just go out there and win the first 2 games of the season.
Yep.
Just win the first 2. And you know what? In the next, when the weeks 3 through 8, what is that, 6 games, right? And you go 2-4, okay. You play really tough games. Every team you're playing in weeks 3 through 8 either finished over 500 and made the playoffs last year. Okay, you go 2-4 in those games. If you win your first 2, you're 4-4. You're right in. You're right in it heading into November.
Yep.
And that's fine. Just figure out a way to win those first 2 games.
I think everybody from the second that schedule came out said to themselves, got to go 2-0.
And it's funny.
Got to go 2-0.
I think everyone expects Jaden Daniels to be the week 1 starter. I've talked to some people. They think they might get Sam Darnold in week 1. That they might hold back McCarthy for a while in Minnesota.
I've kind of always believed that when we talked about this at first.
You certainly said that.
I wasn't so sure that McCarthy's going to get that nod right away. And to be honest with you, okay, That's fine with me because I was never impressed with Darnold anyway. We know about he used to talk about feeling ghosts, seeing ghosts.
My thought, though.
So I still think the Giants are in a good position against him.
Then again, the way we talk about Daniel Jones, a bad situation, Sam Darnold's never had a really good situation around him either.
No, he really hasn't.
He hasn't played well either, and 100%. But he's like the Jets' offensive lines were terrible. The Panthers with the wide receiver and offensive line was never good either. So, but I guess the point I was trying to make is that we kind of just assume, the reason the league made that matchup in week 1. The Giants, the league's always looking for storylines, right?
Yeah.
Giants had a chance to draft McCarthy at 5. They don't. He goes to the Vikings. You line him up in week 1, but we might not even get McCarthy in that game. And the Vikings are a good team, by the way. Like Vikings are a good football team. They won 500 last year.
Pass rush has been totally decimated by those 2 defections.
It is, but this is going to be an early challenge for that offensive line with Flores there. Very creative blitz package. So you're going to get tested in that first game right away with the way he designs his defense in those blitzes.
He will do a lot of that. Whether or not he's got the horses to execute, I'm not so sure.
He does not have great one-on-one pass rush winners.
Now, what they do have, though, is a very good offensive skill position set, which will test the secondary.
Correct. And a good offensive line, for that matter.
Yeah.
Like, their offensive line is pretty good in
They
Minnesota.
can play.
So that's going to be rough. And then we'll see. Who knows? I mean, we have no idea what Washington's even going to look like.
No, we don't.
They've said so many changes. So, anyway, I just wanted to get my 2 cents in on the schedule. Because Paul's on, I believe, with Howard tomorrow, or Casillas tomorrow?
I think Casillas.
Somebody, either Howard or Casillas is tomorrow. And then I'll be back the last 2 shows of the week with SciTac. Because you're off doing baseball games, correct?
Got college baseball this week.
Absolutely. So SciTac and he's back from his honeymoon. He'll be tan. He'll be relaxed.
You get a tan in Japan? Do you?
I'm sure he figured out a way to get some sun in Japan, yes. It is the spring. It's spring in Japan as well. They're in the northern hemisphere, so I'm sure he figured out a way to get some sun.
Okay.
I think he told me he was going to hike part of Mount Fuji, if I'm not mistaken. We'll find out. We'll get all the details.
How about that?
Oh, well, not all the details. We'll get some of the details from his honeymoon in Japan when he gets back later in the week. Folks, Giants season tickets. The schedule's out. Check it out. Giants.com/tickets. Become a season ticket member. A lot of cool benefits to become connected to the team all year round. A lot of good stuff. And the Giants released it, like the little gift package they're giving season ticket holders this year.
Wow.
It's really cool. Replica rings from all 4 Super Bowls. And, guys, I've held these in my hands. They're nice. Like, they're heavy. Like, these are really nice replicas. You got a special ticket from the first ever game the Giants played as well in a little, like, glass thing. It's really, really cool. So, Giants.com/tickets. Individual tickets will be there as well. Check that out. And Giants TV is the Giants Connected TV streaming app. Go download that when you get a chance. For Paul Dottino, I'm John Schmeelk. We'll see you next time on Big Blue Kickoff Live.